Oh, the Habsburg jaw. That famously protruding lower jaw that's still a topic on YouTube. If you've seen Charles II of Spain, you know exactly what I mean. That jutting lower jaw looks like it's trying to escape from his face. This wasn't just bad luck, but the genetic price of centuries of royal inbreeding. For generations, the Habsburgs didn't just rule Europe, they were Europe. Austria, Spain, Hungary, the Netherlands, even Mexico. Their empire was less a kingdom and more a multinational corporation of crowns. But empires collapse and royal dynasties fade, at least in the old-fashioned way. The Habsburg name didn't disappear. They're still around today, just not ruling anymore. Instead of wielding scepters, they now race cars, design jewelry, and dabble in politics. But before we meet the modern Habsburgs, the heirs of a non-existent empire, let's look at how we got here. The Habsburgs weren't warriors or visionaries, but undisputed champions of strategic marriage. While other dynasties conquered with swords, the Habsburgs built an empire through wedding nights, swapping battles for betrothals. Their motto might as well have been, "Why conquer when you can marry?" And for centuries it worked. Starting as a modest Swiss family, they played a centuries-long royal dating game that catapulted them onto nearly every major European throne. By the 16th century, Charles V ruled an empire so vast the sun never set on it. Spain was swimming in New World gold, Pech was a cultural hub, and Hungary had been absorbed into their empire. They weren't just playing chess with Europe, they replaced all the pieces with their own. But unlimited power has a cost, and in this case it was political arrogance and a family tree that looked more like a wreath. By the late 17th century, the Spanish Habsburgs were in a catastrophic state. Their once mighty empire was hemorrhaging money and drowning in corruption. Their last king, Charles II, was a living genetic warning. Physically weak, mentally underdeveloped, and so deformed he could barely chew. He was the final result of royal inbreeding. When he died in 1700 without an heir, Spain was left in chaos, triggering a massive European panic. No one wanted Spain and France to merge into a superpower, so war broke out. The War of Spanish Succession lasted 13 years and ended with an awkward compromise. Spain got a new king, Philip of Anjou, but only if he renounced any claim to France. Austria took Spain's former territories in Italy and the Netherlands. Britain claimed Gibraltar and never let go.
The Habsburgs, once rulers of Spain, were permanently excluded from the deal. The Austrian branch held on, but the days of undisputed dominance were over. Nationalism swept through Europe, and ruling a vast multi-ethnic empire seemed less like wielding limitless power and more like babysitting a ticking time bomb. The revolutions of 1848 nearly finished them off, as uprisings erupted throughout their empire. They barely survived thanks to help from Russian troops, but the warning signs were clear. This wasn't a dynasty built for the modern age anymore. In 1867, they split the empire into Austria-Hungary to appease Hungary. It worked for a while, but it was all a fragile balancing act, a Jenga tower of national tensions. Then came 1914. A bullet in Sarajevo, fired by a Serbian nationalist, killed Archduke Franz Ferdinand and triggered World War I. Austria-Hungary, eager to flex its fading power, declared war on Serbia. What should have been a small conflict turned into a total disaster. The Habsburgs backed the losing side, their economy collapsed, their army was exhausted, and by 1918, their empire had shattered. Nationalist movements seized the opportunity and the empire disintegrated. Emperor Charles I, who had only been on the throne for 2 years, desperately tried to negotiate a role as a symbolic monarch. No one cared. Austria declared itself a republic, Hungary followed. The monarchy was dead. Charles, convinced that divine right still meant something, refused to abdicate. In 1921, he made 2 pathetic attempts to reclaim the Hungarian throne, first by politely asking, then sneaking in like a bargain bin Napoleon. Both times the Hungarian government threw him out. His final exile took him to Madeira, where he died of pneumonia in 1922. Poor, forgotten, and anything but imperial. Then came the real final blow. In 1919, Austria passed the Habsburg Law, stripping the family of their lands, titles, and any hope of return, unless they renounced all claims to the throne, a full eviction notice from history. Hungary, despite technically keeping the monarchy, didn't let any Habsburg near the throne either. Instead, they chose Admiral Miklos Horthy as regent, a ruler without a king. Former Habsburg lands like Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia made it clear they wanted nothing to do with their old rulers.
Even the Nazis, despite their love for imperial aesthetics, had no patience for aristocratic relics. Some Habsburgs were even arrested. After World War II, Austria kept the Habsburg law in place. Only in 1961 did Otto von Habsburg, son of Charles I, finally renounce his claim to the throne, allowing him to return as a private citizen.
After centuries of power, wars, and more cousin marriages than should legally be allowed, the Habsburgs went from emperors to tourists in their own former empire. Today, their name lives on in history books, palaces turned museums, and somehow, in Texas monarchist cosplay meetups. These days, the Habsburgs are no longer kings or emperors, but they're still here, scattered across Europe, navigating modern life with a mix of legacy privilege and occasional scandal. Some have gone into politics, others into business, and some into racing. Karl von Habsburg is closest to being a heir to the throne, if there were still a throne to inherit. As head of the House of Habsburg-Lorraine, he assumed a role that earlier generations would have called emperor. But today, he's just a guy with a famous last name. Instead of launching a royal comeback, he went into politics. He served as a member of the European Parliament for Austria's Conservative Party. But if you expected Karl to dominate and restore the monarchy, think again. His political career was more awkward than impressive. His biggest headline wasn't a grand policy move, but failing to declare an antique tiara at customs. In 1996, while crossing from Switzerland into Austria, his wife had a family heirloom studded with gems, and they forgot to mention it to border agents. The result? A hefty fine and a firm reminder that even ex-royals have to do paperwork. Since then, Karl has focused on European cultural heritage projects and giving speeches at historical and monarchist events. He's not exactly trying to reclaim a throne, but he does enjoy reminding people that his family once ruled half the continent. If Karl represents a reminder of Old World legacy, his distant cousin, Ferdinand Habsburg, is the embodiment of reinvention. Instead of politics, Ferdinand chose speed. He's a professional race car driver. In 2021, he won the 24 Hours of Le Mans in the LMP2 category, one of the world's biggest endurance races. Had history gone differently, Ferdinand might have been learning how to govern an empire. Instead, he's mastering how to corner at 320 kilometers an hour. And honestly, that's probably for the best. The last few Habsburg rulers weren't exactly known for their quick thinking. Ferdinand, at least, has lightning-fast reflexes. His career proves that modern aristocrats don't have to sit around, waiting for history to hand them back power. He built a name for himself completely independent of his royal past. His sister, Eleonora Habsburg, also chose a modern path, one that still includes wealth and glamour, but with fewer royal duties. She began as a model walking for brands like Dolce & Gabbana, before moving into jewelry design. In some ways, it's a fitting career. The Habsburgs were once famous for collecting crowns and royal regalia. Now, she just makes the modern equivalents. Her personal life also reflects the new Habsburg trend, marrying outside aristocratic circles. In 2020, she married Belgian race car driver Jerome D'Ambrosio. Apparently, there's something about Habsburgs and people who drive very fast. Their first child, Otto, was born in 2021. For those who think modern Habsburg should be a bit more traditional, there's Eduard Habsburg, Hungary's ambassador to the Vatican and a Catholic writer. He's the closest thing to an old-school noble, devout, intellectual, and still uses his full aristocratic name without irony. Edward is also one of the most outspoken Habsburgs. He frequently tweets about Catholicism, monarchy, and the family legacy. His book, The Habsburg Way: 7 Rules for Turbulent Times, offers life lessons from the dynasty, emphasizing values like faith, family, and duty. Though he conveniently skips over the inbreeding part.